Good afternoon. The board is pleased to welcome two new trustees, Dan Delegati and Stan Rapp, were appointed by the governor effective October 17th. While Stan cannot be with us today, although he will be on the call shortly, I'm pleased Dan is able to be here. We look forward to working with you in collective service to the university. I want to welcome all those returning to Happy Valley for homecoming. I offer special appreciation to one of the largest and best student-run homecoming planning organizations in the country, including 400 student volunteers. You know, you learn something new every day. I learned yesterday that our friend Matt Schuyler was homecoming king of the court or something. Yeah, king of the court. Yeah. And we're still, searching the archives, and we're going to come up with some photographs, and we hopefully have them at the next meeting. Yes, all right. This year, Homecoming Week coincides with Military Appreciation. On behalf of the board, thank you to everyone involved in the events and activities that have occurred over the last few weeks. The efforts from the Military Appreciation Committee, various university and community partners, and our military and veterans have been extraordinary. For example, the Seats for Service Members program will provide complimentary tickets to many active duty, Guard, and Reserve military, veterans, and fallen and Gold Star families for tomorrow's football game against Rutgers. This is made possible by the Penn Staters, community members, and businesses that purchase literally thousands of tickets for these heroes. Likewise, our thanks go to the volunteers who are working tirelessly to plan and participate in tomorrow's pregame tailgate for our service members, veterans, and their families, and families of our fallen heroes. I want to personally thank, on behalf of all of our trustees, Trustee McCumbee, for his participation and remarks during the homecoming ceremony of the Vietnam Veterans Traveling Memorial Wall, which was at Innovation Park for several days in early October. Also for your, we're not done. He's not, no, there's more for Ryan. Also for your participation, Ryan, in the WPSU Vietnam War documentary, A Time to Heal. And last but not least, he invited all of us to the tailgate. So thank you, Ryan. Very much appreciate your commitment, Ryan. It's meaningful. In the spirit of military appreciation, I'm pleased and honored today to have three very special guests with us. I will introduce each of our guests and ask them to come to the podium for some remarks. Let me begin with Colonel Eugene McFeely, who in January 2017 became the university's first Senior Director of Veteran Affairs and Services. Previously, he served as Commander of Detachment 720 in the Air Force Reserve Officer Training Corps. His military experience is especially noteworthy. To highlight just a few of his many positions, he served as Deputy Director of Force Planning in the Office of the Secretary of Defense in the Homeland Defense and America's Security Affairs Division, commanding the 336th Fighter Squadron at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, was Division Chief of the 607th Combat Squadron in the Republic of Korea, and flew 215 combat missions during Operation Southern Watch and Enduring Freedom. Please join me in welcoming Colonel McFeely.
Trustee Dambley, Board of Trustees, Dr. Barron, thank you for giving me this opportunity to come here today and to talk a little bit about Veterans Affairs and Services at Penn State University. So my journey started off here in 1989 when I graduated from the College of Engineering and also the Air Force ROTC program. I've served 27 years in the United States Air Force, and this past January I retired from active duty to now fill this brand new position as the Senior Director of Veterans Affairs and Services for the university. So Dr. Barron created this position to ensure that there was someone to coordinate all the entities across the university that provide services or administer programs to our student veterans. As part of this, Dr. Barron charged me to take a look at Veterans Affairs across the university and to look for gaps in services that we provide, as well as to seek opportunities to better the experience for our student veterans during their time here at Penn State. In addition, Dr. Barron charged me also to be the lead advocate for student veterans across the university. So these are the items we're going to discuss just a little bit today. So the vision here is to be a national leader as well as the beacon for higher education when it comes to student veteran engagement, support, services, and success. And the way we're going to do that is to serve our student veterans by enabling their access to all aspects of higher education and empower them to succeed while they're here at Penn State, and just as importantly, to help them succeed as they transition to the next step after education. So if I was to give you 3 action verbs that I have, is basically coordinate, collaborate, and advocate for our student veterans. To give you an idea of our student population that are taking advantage of GI Bill benefits, I'm just going to throw up the university campus chart here. But across the university, we have roughly 5,600 students that are taking advantage of GI Bill benefits at Penn State. Across the campuses, you can see how that's distributed, with University Park being the largest campus with over 700, followed by Harrisburg, then Altoona, then Erie, and then Abington campuses. So also of note, in the upper, right-hand corner is the World Campus, where we serve almost 3,000 students who are on veteran benefits. And this snapshot does not include our students who are currently serving on active duty and also take advantage of what Penn State has to offer from the education standpoint. This is just a list of a few of the projects that we're working right now from the student veteran perspective. I'm just going to highlight a couple in the interest of time, but the bottom line is we have a lot of Commonwealth campuses that offer a lot of great opportunities for our student veterans. And one of the important things is to collaborate among all the university campuses to ensure that we're providing as best we can the same level of services for a veteran at a campus with a population of 7 veterans as opposed to the one up here at University Park, which is in excess of 700. The other part, too, is sharing best practices and also sharing different programs that we all participate in so that the veterans have a similar experience across the entire Commonwealth. Another project we're working on is what we'll refer to as the Veteran Alliance. We have a lot of people a lot of faculty and staff here at Penn State University who have either served or have an affiliation or a passion for student veterans. So we're going to leverage that and co-opt them so that they can provide mentorship and help to our student veterans throughout the various academic units and colleges in the university. Likewise, what we're trying to do with our faculty and staff, we're also going to extend out to the alumni nation. We have a lot of Penn State alumni out there that are veterans that are in key corporations today, and they can also provide mentorship as these veterans are transitioning from student to their follow-on careers. So we're going to hopefully take advantage of that. And then the last thing I'll mention is our Student Veteran Center, which we plan to build here at University Park. So it's a dedicated veteran space that we're going to co-locate veteran services that are veteran specific so that they can take advantage of it, and also help create a community for our student veterans where they can engage in peer-to-peer support, mentoring, and activities. So as we are piloting and working through these major projects, one of the things that we're doing as a model is we're going to start and build a lot of these things here at the University Park campus because we have more resources and more people to allocate towards that effort. Once we've built the program and it's ready to move out and deploy, we're going to make sure that we get that out to the Commonwealth campuses so that they have a ready-built program with step 1 through 20 or whatever it is, to ensure that they have a good launch pad for a program at each of the campuses. For military appreciation events, we already heard a brief preview of what we've done, but we started this year a month-long event starting with the Traveling Wall coming to Penn State in the October timeframe, and we're going to continue that through until Sunday when we conclude with the women's basketball game. But our capstone event within this is the Military Appreciation Football Game. And just to give you a sense of how big this is for scope, we're 6 years into this now as a continuous event. We started out in 2012 with 100 free tickets. Last year, we gave out over 7,500 free tickets and served almost 10,000 people in the Bryce Jordan Center at the Appreciation Tailgate. We actively serving service members, veterans, their families, and Gold Star families during this time frame. And also to give you the sense of the popularity of this event, last year it took about 2.5 weeks for us to exhaust the 7,500 tickets to get them out. This year we did it in a mere 9 hours. So very popular among the veteran population in Pennsylvania. This is all powered through basically donations and also volunteerism. So we have roughly 500 volunteers that come down to the Bryce Jordan Center and serve our veterans and their families. And just to give you again a sense of pride for this, we definitely hands down have the biggest event of this kind in the Big Ten. So pending your questions, that's all I have.
Is that tailgate open to the public?
Actually, the tailgate is closed, and it's only for military members and their families. But the Board of Trustees, we have an open invitation for you to come and join us,
Thank you.
which is probably wise.
Well, thank you very much.
Just one last thing. On behalf of the ROTCs, our veterans, and our military members, please accept this military appreciation coin from the Military Appreciation Committee.
Thank you.
On behalf
Thank
of
you
the
very
Board of
much.
Trustees.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll cherish this more than the parking pass. So thank you very, very much. Austin Bay-New-Oki is a senior from Stafford, Virginia, majoring in mechanical engineering with a minor in military studies. In high school, he was a member of the National Honor Society, played in the orchestra, and was a 3-year varsity letterman in soccer. He is currently a Shire's Honor Scholar and a member of the Penn State Naval ROTC unit. He's working in a research lab with Dr. Nichols Brown for his honors thesis that has a working title of An Investigation into the Impact of Alternative Nuclear Fuel Cladding Options on Boiling Heat Transfer. That's an intense one. I should mention, incidentally, that Austin's Penn State roots run deep. His mother is a Penn State graduate with a degree in architectural engineering, and earlier this year, his father, who graduated with a degree in nuclear engineering, was named a 2017 Outstanding Engineer alumnus. Please join me in welcoming Austin to the podium. I know I messed up the name. Sorry about that. Like I said, get it all at this point.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, thank you very much for having me here. My name is Austin Bieniowski. I'm a senior from Stafford County, Virginia, majoring in mechanical engineering. But the main reason I'm here is because I'm a member of both the Schreier Honors College and the Naval ROTC unit here at Penn State. So in order to tie those two groups together, I'm going to talk a little bit about how I came to Penn State as well as what a typical day for me looks like here. So first things first, as you heard in the introduction, I come from a family of Penn Staters. That's at least a little part why I ended up here at Penn State, coming from Northern Virginia. Both of my parents are alums in the class of 1989 in the College of Engineering. My mother, Ann, studied architectural engineering, while my father studied nuclear engineering. Both of my parents grew up in State College as well, since both of their fathers, my grandfathers, were professors here at Penn State in the College of Earth and Mineral Sciences. They were Dr. Pete Lucky and Dr. Richard Bieniowski. My mother's father, Dr. Pete Lucky, is also a Penn State alum, earning his undergraduate, master's, and PhD all from Penn State. His wife, my grandmother, who he met during his undergraduate time here at Penn State, also holds 2 degrees from Penn State, her undergraduate and her master's in elementary education. All of my parents' siblings also attended Penn State, and since you're probably sensing a theme, I'm not going to bore you with the rest of my extended family. On the Navy side of things, I came out of high school knowing that I wanted to give back and serve my country. I wasn't quite sure how. I decided on the Navy because it had the 2 options that I was most interested in, submarines and aviation. My father, the nuclear engineer, wanted me to go submarines. And while I do find that the nuclear science fascinating, which is why I'm in a research lab involving nuclear science, I always secretly wanted to fly. Maybe not quite like Maverick in Top Gun, but close enough. So I applied for the Navy ROTC scholarship, and those are placed at specific schools. So it took a little bit of wrangling to get it here at Penn State, but it finally all worked out. At the same time, I applied to the Schreier Honors College. My mother was part of the program back when it was the University Honors Program, and she encouraged me to apply due to the extra benefits. My parents liked the scholarship that they give me, and I enjoyed the nicer dorms and the priority scheduling. So I was fortunate enough to get into Schreier, and that made Penn State the best facet in every choice. It had the top-level engineering program that I was looking for. It was my favorite school and football team, and with the combination of the ROTC and Schreier scholarships, it became the most affordable option, even coming from out of state. So once at Penn State, I absolutely loved both these programs that I'm involved in. I love the honors dorms, which gave me the opportunity to study often, as well as having that freshman experience that so many freshmen crave. I've made lasting friends with my floor mates from freshman year, 2 of whom I currently live with. I enjoyed all the honors classes that I was required to take. Still, my favorite was my Chem 110 honors class that I took my freshman year. which was such an engaging course that I absolutely loved it, even though it was a minor prereq for my major. And I still continue to enjoy those honors courses, which have allowed me the option of taking some of these larger lecture hall classes of 200 to 300 students and moving them down to a size of about 25, 30 students, which really helped me get into the habit of attending office hours and making connections with my professors. Another aspect of the Honors College that I've enjoyed is the requirement for a thesis prior to graduation, which forces all honors students to do some sort of undergraduate research. We mentioned earlier that I do my study in nuclear reactors. I work with Dr. Nicholas Brown looking at alternative cladding materials for nuclear fuel rods. The cladding is the material that surrounds the actual radioactive pellets that provide the power in the reactor. And the overall goal of our research is to improve the safety margins of the reactor by finding a more accident-tolerant metal to act as that cladding. And we are doing this mainly using a coded simulation of a nuclear reactor. I've also loved my time as part of the NROTC unit here. It has given me many wonderful opportunities that I would not have had otherwise. Through the Navy, I have been to Seattle, Hawaii, and California. I've ridden in a submarine and an F-18. And next fall, I'll be going to Florida to begin flight school in my path to becoming a pilot. And these are all amazing opportunities that I have loved. But those are all opportunities that I've had away from Penn State. Here on campus, the ROTC unit has given me leadership opportunities, from helping out with freshman orientation to being involved in some battalion-wide decisions while being part of our battalion staff. And my daily schedule on campus definitely does not involve trips to Hawaii or rides in a fighter jet. My on-campus commitments to the Honors College tend to dominate my time more so than the ROTC. As I mentioned, for the Honors College, that requires for honors credits, you have to take 21 in your first 2 years and 14 in the 2 years following. I mentioned the thesis requirement, which I actually started this past summer and I'm now working on actively this semester. You also have to keep your GPA up. The ROTC requirements include PT, which we do one very early morning each week, and a 3-credit class each semester. The Navy classes, as we like to call them, include topics ranging from history, basic engineering, leadership, and navigation. So following those requirements, each of my semesters include one Navy class and usually 1 or 2 honors classes. Those on top of my engineering curriculum lead me to average about 18 credits a semester. So I do tend to have busy days. For example, on a day when I have PT, I'm usually up around 4:45. I go PT, do some running, some push-ups, burpees, sit-ups, all kinds of fun stuff. And then I'll have a meeting right after about how our battalion is run. I'll come home, shower, go to class for a couple hours, get some lunch, go back to class for another hour or two, sometimes go up to Wagner Building, drop off some forms, things like that, and then study and relax for the rest of the day for a little bit. On non-PT days, my schedule is relatively similar, but I do try to get to the gym or run some points in the evening, and I do not have to get up at 0:30. So my daily schedule as a senior is a little bit different now, which is very nice. I have significantly less credits, but I am actively involved in the research, so there's not a massive change in my time commitments. I just spend a little bit more time in my lab looking at computer screens, doing code, and less time doing homework and studying. So I've learned many lessons here through both the Honors College and the ROTC unit that will help me become a better naval officer and potentially after with whatever I may do. I have had to learn discipline, but in different ways. The ROTC teaches discipline the military way: make your bed, follow orders, recite the proper statement under the stress of a gunnery sergeant bearing down on you. And the Honors College teaches you different disciplines, such as the discipline to finish a 15-page research paper on the composition of turbine blades and jet engines the Friday of finals week when you're the last one in the library and you just finished the last of your 6 finals. But I've been taught time management by being thrown into the fire a few times, and I'm better for it. I've loved everything about my experience here at Penn State and wouldn't trade it for the world, especially since I have had the amazing opportunity to be involved in 2 wonderful organizations in the Schreier Honors College and our Naval ROTC unit. So I'd like to thank you all again for the honor of being able to speak to you today, especially to Ms. Andrews and Ms. Wing, who helped me coordinate this. Also the staff at the Navy ROTC unit, particularly my senior class advisor, Lieutenant Dillard Houston, who helped me proofread this little speech, and the staff of the Honors College, namely Dr. Kirsch, for setting this up. Thank you very much again.
Well, very, very impressive, Austin, and thank you for your kind words about your experience here, and thank you for your service. Our final guest this afternoon is someone many of you may have already read about or seen on national television, Max Roan was permanently injured on duty in Iraq in 2009 and now balances the demands of being a world-class athlete with Penn State Ability Athletics and his studies in engineering, competing in the javelin, shot put, and discus. Matt's accomplishments are long and impressive, including competing internationally for Team USA in the Paralympics, as well as the Invictus Games. His performance at the 2016 Invictus Games resulted in gold medals in the discus throw and shot put events, which added to his collection of 3 previous medal performances in 2015. That 2016 performance earned him a national spotlight on CBS This Morning, as well as recognition by ESPN. Please join me in welcoming Max to the podium.
Good morning. First and foremost, I'd like to say happy birthday to all my Marines out there. It's 242 today, so Semper Fi and hoorah. Today, I'm just going to tell you about how I ended up here in my story. I joined the Navy in 2007 on my grandfather's birthday, who was the last person in my family to join the Navy. I was a hospital corpsman with the United States Marine Corps. So I was a combat medic out of Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. I was attached to a PIT team, which is a police transition team. We go in, train the Iraqi police, how to do kinetic operations, and then we also have contractors there who are known as Iraqi police advisors. They teach the Iraqis how to do police investigations. So we were out one day, and we were going through the city of Fallujah, and we were in a three vehicle convoy, and I was in the last vehicle sitting in the front seat. Our front vehicle got stopped, and the last vehicle, which I was in, got hit by an RKG-3 grenade. Then we started receiving small arms fire from the rooftops of the city. Knocked me unconscious. I came to, and then one of my corporals, who I taught to take care of me in case I went down, came to my door, tried to put on a tourniquet, and he messed it all up, so I had to do it myself. And the guy behind me had to hold the door shut, and then we finally got out of there while I was getting medevaced. So I got hurt in Iraq about 5 months into my deployment. From there, I got medevaced to Andrews Air Force Base, where I spent the next 4 years at Walter Reed recovering. I didn't really know what to do with my life because literally my plans got blown up and I didn't have a sense of direction anymore. So I started to get involved with sports and athletics. I competed in the Warrior Games in 2012. That's where I met Coach Jordan. And she recruited me out of the Warrior Games, started telling me about ability athletics here at Penn State. So then it started to motivate me to get better, stronger, and gave me this new dream, this new purpose in life, which was to go to college and try to be the best athlete in the world. So in 2013, I retired out of the Navy and started my school career here at Penn State. I was just telling one of my best friends that this is probably one of the hardest things that I've ever done because it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, and it challenges me in a mental capacity instead of a physical one. So from that, I would just like to thank you all for letting me come here and accomplish my dreams through ability athletics. Thank you.
I want to sincerely thank our 3 guests today for sharing time with us for their service to our nation and pride that results from them being part of Penn State community. It's incredibly inspiring, and thank you for your time and your service very much. Please note that the board met yesterday afternoon as well as this morning in executive session to discuss various privileged matters and to discuss personnel matters. We have a full agenda before us, so let's proceed with today's business. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Jeannie, please call the roll.
Barron. Here. Brown. Here. Capretto. Here. Casey. Here. Cotner. Here. Dambley.
Here.
Dandria. Delegati.
Here.
Detweiler.
Here.
Dietrich.
Here.
Duran. Dunn. Fenza.
Here.
Hahn.
Here.
Harpster.
Here.
Hartzler. Here. Hochel.
Here.
Hoffman.
Here.
Jubileer.
Here.
Kleppinger.
Here.
Lubert. Lebrano.
Here.
Mosser.
Here.
McCumbee.
Here.
Oldsey.
Here.
Paterno.
Here.
Pope.
Here.
Potts. Rakowicz. Rapp. Redding. Rivera. Schneider.
Here.
Schuyler. Steele. Tribeck.
Here.
Weinstein.
Here.
Wolf. Shipley.
Here.
Thank you, Jeannie. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the September 15th meeting? Second? All in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. Before we move on, I do want to recognize our Maritime trustees who are with us today. Jesse Arnell, all the way from San Francisco. Jesse, Al Clemens, Mimi Coopersmith, Dave Jones, Joel Myers, and Helen Wise, and I believe Barry Robinson will be arriving later. So I want to thank you for your service, past and present and future. We very much appreciate it, and thank you for spending time with us today. So thank you. And on a special note, our colleague Joel Myers will be the 2017 Renaissance Fund honoree. So that'll be later in November. So congratulations, Joel, on that. At this time, I'll ask President Barron to come to the podium to provide his report. President.
Before giving the President's report, I'd like to begin by introducing Lauren Nelson, the Executive Director of the 2018 Class Gift Campaign. Lauren is a senior chemical engineering major and also the Thon Development Director. She hails from DuBois, Pennsylvania. The senior class gift is a long-standing tradition and one that adds character to our campus. This year, the committee has decided to organize it a little differently than in the past, and I have asked Lauren to give us an overview of your plans. Lauren?
Thank you, President Barron, for the kind introduction and allowing me the opportunity to speak today. This year, the Class Gift Executive Committee made the decision to expand the number of gifts the graduating class gives to the university from 1 to 3. Our hope with the expansion is to increase participation from the student body by allowing students the opportunity to choose a gift that really inspires them personally. After collecting over 160 proposals from the Penn State community and obtaining about 1,800 votes from seniors, the 2018 class elected to give the following 3 gifts. An alma mater display that will be located in the hub, support for an endowment for the student farm here on Penn State's campus, and support for the textbook and educational resources fund in university libraries. Just a few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to announce these gifts to the class, and Rich Bundy actually joined me and accepted them on behalf of the university. So again, thank you for joining me on that, Rich. Like the class gifts that have come before, these 3 gifts will help beautify and strengthen our university, and having the alma mater displayed prominently in a common location will ignite a sense of Penn State pride in all those who are able to pass by. Support for an endowment for the student farm will ensure the program is able to provide students with invaluable learning opportunities beyond the classroom and contribute to the sustainability efforts set forth by the university. Support for the Textbook and Educational Resources Fund will help students to access the learning tools that they need to perform well in required courses here. With these 3 fantastic gifts now selected, our aim has shifted to fundraising. We will be collaborating with different student organizations and creating a larger presence on campus to increase awareness and encourage students to support these efforts. We're hoping with at least one of these 3 gifts will resonate with individual students and motivate them to give back. The tradition of class gift allows each class to leave a lasting mark on the university. I hope that the gifts the class of 2018 has chosen reflect our shared Penn State pride and collective investment in Penn State's future. Thank you again for your time today, and I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns that you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, as you know, I very much enjoy giving presentations that take on one of the goals for the year or one of the strategic philanthropic campaign areas. And today I would like to look at the theme under Impact the World, Human Health. Our vision is to be a leader in promoting quality of life through comprehensive approaches to enhancing personalized and population health, achieved through a commitment to and investment in relevant research, education, clinical practice, and outreach. That comes straight out of the strategic plan. And as you know, our fundraising campaign is tightly coupled with our strategic campaign. Well, we deal with this from the viewpoint of the current landscape. And the current landscape is one of really rapidly changing healthcare provider systems as one element of it, a competitive environment, an increasingly competitive environment for research funding, new treatment options for cancer and other diseases, the impact of big data, the capability for us to reach and look at a vast volume of information in order to assess everything from how a lifestyle might be contributing to your health or to look at large genetic databases, and a focus on population health and personalized medicine. So where is Penn State positioned today within this landscape? Well, first of all, our expenditures for medical research is in the 4th lowest in the top 25 of universities. Clearly, that's not something to be bragging about. The total awards for health-related research is $229.4 million for FY 2017, includes research and instruction, outreach and service. We have a widely distributed presence across the Commonwealth, including medical college, a medical center, College of Medicine, and Extension Service. And we have a University Health Sciences Council, which is working hard to integrate across Penn State. In my mind, what this slide describes is a university that's poised to do exceptional things in health-related areas, and one in which there's huge amount of opportunity. To give you an idea, again, where we sit on the research dollar side of things from NIH, which is the biggest funder of health-related research, we are the second from the right side of the screen. So clearly, we have the potential to do much better. And not that I would only want to do this on the basis of dollars, because I'd really rather do it on the basis of quality, but this is a university that can be a $1 billion research enterprise a year, putting us in the very top echelon of privates and publics in terms of the research portfolio. But this is the area for which a focus will enable us to get there. Well, what's Penn State's strength? Why is it that I am so convinced that we are capable of reaching the top echelon of all research universities in the country? Why do we see so much potential in this space? And I think it's because we have demonstrated an ability to integrate across disciplines for which no one is as competitive and strong in that capability in this nation. And I visited a lot of universities, and I don't see any that have that capability. And we have some really great examples that are related to health, but tell us how powerful this space can be. Huck Institutes of Life Sciences is a fantastic example that couples the power of philanthropy with the attitude of Penn State to integrate across disciplines to do fantastic things. So think about an institute with $15 million to support and co-fund faculty, students, and research initiatives. And now imagine that that $15 million translates to 476 faculty members representing 7 colleges and 31 departments working within this framework. 316 grad students, postdoc, and staff, 10 state-of-the-art instrumentation facilities, 23 research institutes and centers of excellence. Obviously, I could go through all 23, but instead I've just chosen to give you a couple of examples. The Infectious Disease Institute, targeting emerging infections and evolution of antibiotic resistance, and a Center for Neural Engineering, which focuses on new devices for medicine and convergence of material sciences and life sciences. It's a powerful example of what the potential of Penn State is. Here's another example that demonstrates that power. The Population Research Institute, 200 plus affiliates, including 70 research faculty, 40 teaching faculty, postdoctoral scholars, predoctoral trainees, and professional staff, established by Penn State and the NIH. And just as an example of the types of things going on here is studying racial and ethnic disparities in kidney donation and transplant processes. Third example, Child Maltreatment Solutions Network, 16 faculty and staff, 4 foundational centers, and 10 affiliates, building a sustainable network of researchers and practitioners. 21 awarded grants totaling $19 million, 9 pending grants. Most are transdisciplinary collaborations that include 5 different colleges to solve these critical problems. And now a $7.7 million award to support a new NIH capstone center. Now, one example to give you an idea of what occurs within this network is Penn State's Child Health Study with 1,200 students designed to detect abusive head trauma in pediatric ICU centers. Okay, so there are examples already related to the health sciences that describe the potential of philanthropic donations and explosive research and the capability of Penn State to cross different colleges. So, Penn State's goal is to impact the world through human health. How can we get there from where we are and the landscape that we're in? Well, our approach is to look at 4 areas. One is to make sure we're transforming medical education to meet 21st century needs. The second is to take this strength of crossing colleges and promote those collaborations. The third is to accelerate the process from discovery to clinical trials. And the fourth is to promote health and wellness across the lifespan. So let me go through each of these. The first one, transform medical education to meet the 21st century needs. We at least have 2 people in this room that could give this presentation far better than I could. And if I have a question, I know exactly which shoulders to tap on. But think about this as personalizing medical education, adding things like global health experiences, and how it is that we promote research. So here are just some examples of personalizing medical education. There's now a full curriculum at University Park. There are new longitudinal integrated clerkships at York, caring for frail and elderly patients, at Summit Health and Community Health Systems, at Kaiser, care coordination and population health. What we saw today in an earlier this morning presentation, in terms of joint degree programs, we see growing in the health enterprise. Joint MD, PhD, joint MD and Masters in Public Health, joint MD and MBA, and coming in 2018, joint MD and MED. These are opportunities for us to cross these disciplines in terms of degree offerings to produce the set of people working in the world that really can transform medical education and research. Accelerated programs in family and community medicine, emergency medicine, neurosurgery, and orthopedics. We are watching the Penn State Health Enterprise become international. And so you see all these lines crossing, and you can't read all the lines crossing, but I will just tell you this includes global scholars. It includes, I can't read my own handwriting. Public health study abroad. It includes exchange programs, and it includes international students coming to Penn State. So what I hope you can see is all the different dotted lines that are crossing on that map that give you a sense of this international posture. And then let's see what our medical students are doing in this focus. Well, we have first-year medical students participating in HIV and malaria research. In their fourth year, they care for patients at a mission hospital. This is in Zambia. In Taiwan, we have medical and graduate students researching Taiwan's healthcare system and comparing it to the U.S. system. In Ghana, we have medical students and residents that provide care at a rural hospital. This also gives you an idea of Hershey Medical Center College of Medicine research. And I just want to give two examples of the 517 awards there that give also a sense of this cross-campus work. So here's a cross-campus grant on genomics involving computations, bioinformatics, and statistics to train scientists to analyze large data sets. This is something that will be of growing importance in the world. And a 5-year, $9.7 million project studying peripheral arterial disease. The second category here is to work to promote collaborations across colleges and campuses. And I said to myself, well, we should start with a list of all the colleges and campuses that are involved in health-related research that is expertise that we can draw on. And I looked at it and I said, I can't see any college that's missing. And then all of a sudden I realized my college is missing. And yet my college also participates in the health enterprise. So basically, this is a suggestion that health lives in every single college we have on this campus in one form or another, and many of our campuses. Well, let's take a look at some of the things that just give you a sense of where those intersections and collaborations might be. Human exposure to air toxins in buildings. Start to imagine the number of areas that has to focus on. Teacher-doctor patient communication techniques by incorporating art, history, and painting practice. Using food sciences to improve health. Applying social and behavioral neuroscience to manage autism, memory and aging, social anxiety disorders, and health disparities. Developing genetic and cellular strategies for Alzheimer's disease, traumatic brain injury, diabetes, and cardiovascular diseases. Mining patient data to devise personalized medicine treatment. Developing smart drugs and drug delivery systems. Each of these represents current examples of where we cross disciplines to deliver the goal of impacting the world in human health. There are some other examples that you can imagine are growing and are of increasing importance. One of those is substance abuse, addiction, and prevention. We have more than 100 Penn State researchers and clinicians across 15 colleges, departments, and institutes that are working in this area. A 5-year, $21 million award funds projects by the Penn State Tobacco Center for Regulatory Science. A $1 million grant is there to establish medication-assisted opioid treatment programs. And we have partners that cross National Institute of Drug Abuse, U.S. Food and Drug Administration, Care and Treatment Center, and Pennsylvania Department of Drug and Alcohol programs. This is an example where crossing these disciplines allows us to tackle a national crisis in ways that other universities cannot. A theme that is a part of the Health Council's objectives is regenerative and genetic medicine. Restoring organ function is now possible through recent advances in cell biology, genetics, and biomedical engineering. We have 20 PSU faculty working in stem cell biology, in vivo cell conversion, and CRISPR gene editing. I just hope they hurry, because I'm aging quickly. But here is a tremendous opportunity here for us to be part of a transformation in the health sciences. Another one, an important focus, that again crosses many, many different parts of our university is prevention, treatment, and cures for cancer. Penn State Cancer Institute is a centerpiece of our interdisciplinary efforts to fight cancer, catalyzing collaborations among cancer researchers across Penn State's colleges and campuses. Currently, there are more than 2,000 patients actively participating in more than 200 clinical trials. And we have an application underway to become an NCI-designated cancer center within the next 18 months. That designation is one that says, here's a place that is in the top echelon of cancer treatment and cure centers in the country. And we have got a good start here, being named among the top 100 hospitals and health systems with great oncology programs by Becker's Hospital Review. Tremendous potential in this area if we can bring all of these disciplines together to work on what is clearly something that would impact the world. The third major category is to accelerate the process from discovery to clinical trials. Here we're thinking about Penn State's role in innovation and entrepreneurship, our Clinical and Translational Science Institute, and how technology comes to bear in this area. I love, as everybody here knows, topics where we look at things like the Center for Medical Innovation, launched in 2017, 47 new medical technologies added to intellectual property databases, medical devices, therapeutics, diagnostics, other topics, 10 patents, 2 startup companies, and 3 license agreements. Can you imagine what it's going to be like when we really get this rolling? And here is one that is also, I think, very special. Olivier Noel was named to Forbes 30 Under 30 list in the science industry for a startup company that facilitates genetics in an MD, PhD medical science training program. And here is one example. I don't know how it is that Penn State got 5 in the Forbes 30 Under 30 list, but we've got exceptional people, and here they are working on things that will be transformative. Clinical and Translational Science Institute is a central infrastructure to catalyze, to help build teams and translate new research findings into tangible health benefits. Awarded a 4-year, $20 million grant from the NIH to accelerate scientific discoveries in public health improvements. An example is fighting cancer, which contributes to this NCI designation. 5 years ago, researchers, this is just an example, 5 years ago, researchers developed a compound derived from fish oil that cured leukemia in mice. It's now in clinical studies with leukemia patients. Another frontier in this area is enhancing access through telehealth. You can imagine from strokes to dermatology to ALS to psychology or even an EICU what the potential is for, say, a teenager to be sitting there on a screen with a physician focused on acne as opposed to coming into the doctor's office. The time it saves, the opportunity it saves, and what the potential there is. And you see in that picture a physician in a telemedicine consultation with an ALS patient. The last area is to promote health and wellness across the lifespan. Here, as we all know, we have the incredible importance of developing a community health system, that this must be a part of our future. And I'd also like to add in here, just to give you some examples of the importance of our nursing program and the fact that you might not anticipate the type of research that nursing is doing that contributes to this whole spectrum, as well as some other projects, the ones I chose from health, centrally in health and human development, the cross disciplines that also give you an idea of what we're doing in this space. So here is a quick visual demonstration of how the landscape is changing. Every single one of those red hospitals in 2011 was an independent hospital. If you look at 2017, as you can see, the landscape in a very short amount of time has changed considerably with very few remaining independent health systems. Let me give you that nursing example, and you can look at some of the statistics. Pre-licensure programs preparing over 1,100 students, second-degree options that provide 16-month training for people in different professions that want to add nursing, 84 licensed nurses engaged in primary care and acute care programs for nurse practitioners, and there's no point in not adding a recognition in this, and including our College of Nursing, and that is, we love the fact that the Hershey Medical Center has received the highest national honor for nursing excellence. But look at the research in nursing that's focused within this theme: enhancing care of victims of sexual assault and sex trafficking, supporting family caregivers, providing care across complex trajectories of multiple chronic conditions, preventing the inappropriate use of medications in older adults, developing an ultra-brief screening tool to identify patients experiencing delirium, redesigning the delivery of interdisciplinary palliative care to provide timely interventions, promoting organizational change in complex care delivery systems to improve outcomes. Two examples from Health and Human Development: a Center for Individualized Health Research and Intervention, which leverages new technologies such as wearable sensors, methods, and data sources like mobile phone apps to establish and promote and sustain healthy behaviors. Or a program to look at health disparities and vulnerable populations, preventing cancer reoccurrence, understanding long-term health consequences of child maltreatment, enhancing healthy aging, and food, water security, and health implications. One last one to add into this spectrum is the Clearinghouse for Military Family Readiness, translational research to promote the health and well-being of military personnel and their families, such as the Air Force Zero Suicide Systems approach. The breadth of the amount of activities that promote healthy lives and long lifespans is impressive. Well, this is what we know we need to do. We need to impact the world through human health, to bring the power of Penn State's many disciplines to bear to solve important problems. We know we have to step forward in research and in education and in service, and we know what it's going to take for us to be a leader in this space. Engaging partners across the university and beyond becomes essential to use that incredible power of Penn State to enhance collaboration between the College of Medicine, UP colleges, and Commonwealth campuses. We see so many examples already today of how powerful that research is when we have the opportunity to focus on it. And we need to nurture those new strategic priorities centered on health in areas like cancer and regenerative medicine. And we need the resources to do it. And of course, this is one of our biggest challenges in order to be able to tackle these problems, is to have that investment. And of course, that's the reason why health is one of the key aspects of a greater Penn State for 21st century excellence. I hope from this that you see this tremendous breadth of activity at Penn State. And then remember that ranking in NIH funding and imagine what the investment could do and what that impact of Penn State would be on public health. Thanks very much for your attention. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report. I'll take questions if you have time.
I actually had a question, or it's either for Craig or Dr. Hahn. Are you seeing any more of this virtual doctor visits happening? Televisits, I guess I call them? Craig?
Yeah, I think that if you look over the last 10 years, there's actually been a pretty rapid ramp up. It used to be that it was primarily around cardiology, echoes, and fetal ultrasound, but we now have very many clinical programs. Our Lion Stroke program now has 16 hospitals throughout central Pennsylvania where within minutes of coming into an emergency room, they're on a video link with a stroke neurologist at the Hershey Medical Center, making a determination as whether they can be cared locally, which happens about 90% of the time, which is a really good thing, or if in that 10% of the time they need to come to the Hershey Medical Center for more advanced treatment. And that's an example of where we're able to really use the resources of a very high-level quaternary care medical center to deliver throughout the community. And I think we're seeing more and more examples of that as President Barron demonstrated. We now do a telepsychiatry triage for the state, for about 2/3 of the state. For child psychiatry, we actually have 2 full-time counselors who work to triage folks to the appropriate mental health and behavioral facilities. So I do think over the last decade we've seen, as we sort of described telehealth in the past as sort of a solution looking for the problem, we've actually been able to, over the last decade, see a lot of examples of where telehealth is really playing a profound role, improving the health of communities, and I anticipate that it'll continue to do so in the future.
Mr. Chairman, just a comment to the doctors is that Comcast thinks this is important enough to have set up an entire division on telehealth, working with 30 Rock and NBC Universal, putting together the programs for telehealth. So as he said, it's a real thing. My daughter was in that division, so that's how I know.
Dr. Hahn?
Yeah, just as a follow-up, I think that as the intense desire to provide these services moves forward, the challenge is to catch up on the sort of regulatory side, and how do you document and how do you categorize and catalog all these kinds of events and ensure that that information is spread appropriately throughout that patient's electronic medical record and communication with other providers. And so, you know, those kinds of partnerships I think are going to be critical.
Well, sure would be nice not to have to leave your house when you're sick, right? And just FaceTime with the doctor or something. And
some of us still make house calls.
Oh, do you? Okay, good. That's good to know. I know Lynn's happy with that.
Some of us.
Okay, thanks. Okay, next, we have asked for a report on admissions and enrollment, so I'll turn the podium over to Rob Pangborn and Clark Brigger.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Dambley and members of the board for the opportunity to highlight the admissions and enrollment outcomes for the cycle that's just ended. The report this year will also include demographic information and a perspective both from the national and Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to illustrate the trends influencing recruitment, admissions, and enrollment at the university. And to do that, I'm very pleased to introduce Clark Brigger, Assistant Vice President and Executive Director for Undergraduate Admissions. Clark came to Penn State in early 2015 from the University of Michigan, where he served as the Senior Associate Director for Undergraduate Admissions. Prior to that, and apropos to today being Veterans Day, he served in the Navy for 20 years in a variety of leadership and management positions, including Chief Operating Officer for a Navy Reconnaissance Squadron, Program Manager for the Joint Staff Communications Division, and as Executive Officer of the Naval ROTC program at Michigan. So, Clark.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob, for that introduction. Good afternoon, and thank you, Chair Dambley and members of the board for this opportunity. The last 10 years of application for admissions are depicted in this chart and demonstrate that student interest in the university remains very high. Undergraduate applications exceeded 85,000 in each of the last 3 years. Adding in 45,000 applications from graduate, law, medicine, and the Penn College of Technology, shown in light blue, results in a total count of over 130,000 applications, slightly lower than our all-time high in the fall of 2016. As seen in blue on this slide, resident enrollments have hovered near 85,000 each year. Our recent enrollment growth has been driven by the World Campus, as shown by the yellow portion on the chart. Online learners are up another 890 students from last year and now comprise over 14,000 students, which brings Penn State's total fall enrollment count to 98,783. We continue to see growth in the power of the Penn State brand. Focusing now on the undergraduate population, baccalaureate enrollment at University Park have been managed in the past couple of years so that they will fall in the range of approximately 40,000 students. Recognizing that last year's record-sized first-year class stressed the available housing and other services at University Park, we scaled back the incoming first-year cohort by approximately 600 students, and were careful not to follow a record-sized class with another very large class. Baccalaureate enrollments at the Commonwealth campuses have also grown modestly over the last decade as the campuses continue to add four-year programs. Since 2008, as shown in green, students pursuing four-year programs have increased by over 2,000 students to nearly 27,000. This baccalaureate degree growth offsets declines in the students enrolled in a smaller number of associate degree programs shown in dark blue, and of high school students taking dual enrollment classes shown in the lighter blue at our nearby campuses on a non-degree basis, the latter owing to the elimination of the state subsidy for the dual enrollment program several years ago. The result of these offsetting trends has been a relatively steady total enrollment for the Commonwealth campuses in the neighborhood of approximately 30,000 students over the past 6 years. The impact of the campus baccalaureate programs, a 35% increase over the past 10 years in students staying to complete their degrees, is reflected in the upper division enrollment growth of the 5 larger campus colleges shown here by the blue trend line. Additionally, the 14 smaller university college campuses shown in black experienced a collective increase of 79 students over last year. Campuses are actively engaged in developing baccalaureate programs that better align with regional interests and student preference for 4-year rather than 2-year degrees. Regional collaboration among the campuses, including delivery of shared academic programs and a lower tier tuition structure, offer the prospect for both cost efficiencies and significant savings for students, serving as a viable and attractive complement to Penn State's longstanding 2+2 academic pathway. Nevertheless, the 2+2 program, in which students start their study at a campus for the first 2 years and then transition to another campus to complete their majors, remains a unique and very popular feature of Penn State. Transitions to University Park have been steadily in the 3,400 range, and the light blue portion of the bars delineates that approximately 1,200 students choose to move from one Commonwealth campus to another as rising juniors in order to complete their chosen major. This slide displays the number of undergraduate transfer students enrolled at Penn State. While the Commonwealth campuses have experienced an 8% growth of transfer enrollments across the last decade, recent declines in transfer students correlate to a smaller applicant pool since the start of the recent economic expansion, which has driven the unemployment rate down and provided jobs for more of these potential students. As can be seen from the light blue portion on this chart, more than 80% of undergraduate transfer students enroll at the Commonwealth campuses. In an attempt to put this Penn State information in context, this slide displays the total U.S. public and private high school graduates, where the dashed blue vertical line in the middle represents the current academic year of 2017-18. Nationally, as shown by the black trend line, one can see that we are experiencing a period of relative stagnation in the number of high school graduates. And this year, it is expected that we will have just under 3.5 million high school graduates. Until 2025, denoted by the smaller vertical blue dashed line, we will experience a limited amount of growth nationally, totaling only 101,000 additional high school graduates, or only about 3%. Then from 2025 to 2032, we will enter into a period of decline of 262,000 students, or 7%. This slide shows the same stagnation and then steady decline in the number of Pennsylvania high school graduates from the first dashed line, the first dashed black vertical line, marking the current year from just over 139,000 to approximately 132,000 projected graduates in 2032. This anticipated 5% decline in the number of high school graduates in Pennsylvania should bring concern to all of us. In the face of this, other universities are becoming increasingly aggressive in the pursuit of Pennsylvania high school graduates, offering them generous discounts portrayed as scholarships. This next slide illustrates how the U.S. high school graduate population is changing on a national scale when it comes to race and ethnicity. The band at the top of the graph shows that in 2017, 8% of our high school graduates come from the non-public or private high schools. Private schools are not required to report on race and ethnicity, but because of the cost of attendance, we can assume that the vast majority are white or Caucasian. 52% of the total population self-report as white, 21% is Hispanic, 13% is black, and 6% is Asian or Pacific Islander. Less than 1% report to be American Indian or Alaskan natives. Over the next 15 years, we see the private and white sections contract by a combined total of 5%, while the Hispanic section grows by 4%, nearly the same amount. And in a couple of slides, we'll see why that's even more important. The projection of Pennsylvania shows a similar trend, with significant declines in the high school graduates who identify as white, indicated by the blue portion, or who attend private schools, indicated by the dark gray at the bottom. 5% of the gains are in the Hispanic category and 2% in the Asian and Pacific Islander section. This next slide illustrates why this is so important, in that only 81% of public high schoolers graduate in 4 years with a regular diploma. And the largest growing segment of our society, those that identify as Hispanic, graduate from high school at a rate of just 75%. Statewide for Pennsylvania, the 4-year graduation rate is approximately 86%. The darker orange areas in some of the suburbs and near State College indicate that greater than 95% of students who start high school graduate. And with lighter colors in the southwest near Penn State Fayette, and in our more rural and our most urban areas, where Pennsylvania is the most diverse, we have some very poor high school graduation rates. Interestingly, as shown by this slide, if we can graduate students from high school at the traditional age of 18, then students of all racial and ethnic groups appear to be going on to college at similar rates of approximately 66%. In an initial effort to consider and address this, undergraduate admissions has recently hosted a program titled Vamanos, which brought some young Hispanic high school students to campus to demonstrate our interest in them and to showcase Penn State's welcoming atmosphere. Additionally, our remote admissions offices in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh are starting to reach down and visit middle schools, providing programming for middle schoolers and their families while extolling the virtues of higher education. This slide should emphasize the importance of getting more students across the finish line, because the Census Bureau informs us that Asian and Pacific Islanders that attain an associate's degree or higher, or do attain the associate's degree or higher at the highest rate, while Hispanics attain an associate's degree or higher at the lowest rate of only 21%. As people in this room well know, in most cases, income levels are directly related to the attainment of higher education. And circled in red, again we can see the largest growing demographic, the Hispanic population, has a very low median family income of just over $51,000, when compared to the median income for whites of $82,000 and Asians of over $93,000. During that same year, the median family income for Pennsylvania residents attending our Commonwealth campuses was $62,000, and at University Park, $94,000. The map on this final slide is based on data from the most recent American Community Survey for the period 2011 to 2015, which gave a statewide rate of 9.3% for families with incomes falling below the federal poverty level, roughly of $25,000 for a family of 4. This is an increase from the 8.5% rate recorded in a similar study conducted 5 years earlier. The map depicts counties with lower poverty in lighter colors, and it can be seen that this is typical of the southeast and south central counties and in suburban Pittsburgh. Higher poverty rates are indicated by dark green, with the city of Philadelphia having the highest in the state at 21%, and Fayette County the second highest at 14%. Penn State programs like the Pathway to Success Summer Start, also known as PASS, and Raise Me micro scholarships are an innovative and significant ingredient in making Penn State more accessible, reducing their time to graduate, and thereby reducing a student's cumulative debt. Finally, of course, we are busy working on next year's class of 2022. To date, we have received approximately 25,000 applications from prospective baccalaureate students to start in summer and fall of 2018 across all campuses, which is comparable to last year's numbers. In order to remain competitive, this year we are a member of the Coalition for Access, Affordability, and Success, a group of 130 peer institutions that share the same application. We also intend to become a member of the Common Application that currently serves over 800 institutions. These arrangements should serve to make it easier for students to apply to Penn State. Additionally, we will move our application deadline forward and provide earlier information to students on their financial aid packages. In summary, there's much work yet to be done. This concludes my report, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, please. Could you tell me what is the percentage of acceptances against applications, both at UP and the entire system? So many people applied. How many people of those are accepted? Not a 10, but are accepted.
Right. Overall, at the University Park campus, for a first-year applicant, our acceptance percentage is in the mid-40 percentages. It's hard to measure when we start talking about the campuses because of the referral piece of those campuses, where many applicants that don't get admitted to University Park have an alternate campus listing and are referred to that campus and are admitted to that campus. So more students are admitted to a campus than actually apply directly to a campus.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very, very much. Okay, before we get on to the committee reports, I just wanted to give a shout out to the UP, UA, and CCGA folks out there. Matt and I had an opportunity on Wednesday evening to attend a joint meeting, and it was invigorating and very, very enjoyable. And Mike Horschel, our fellow trustee, joined the three of us, and we heard from presentations from their standing committees of academic affairs, facilities, government affairs, and student life. And then Michael, Matt, and I stuck around for a while and answered some questions. And it was great. It was a great exchange, and we thanked them for the opportunity. And as we suggested in our visit, you know, we're happy to come anytime to come visit our customers. So thank you. Due to some time constraints, we're going to switch around the committee reports a little bit, and we're going to start with the governance long-range planning. Chairman Hahn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The committee met yesterday with a quorum present. An update was given by Juliana Potts, chair of the Retreat Planning Committee, on plans for our upcoming January 2018 trustee retreat. The committee continues its ongoing work with the skill set inventory and committee operating guidelines. The committee then discussed proposed revisions to the standing orders regarding public comment. These revisions were brought forward from the Committee on Outreach, Development, and Community Relations, and I want to thank them for their thoughtful recommendations. An additional modification regarding public comment regarding current or threatened litigation by parties or counsel to such litigation was introduced. After a robust discussion, the committee voted unanimously to recommend this modified proposed revision, which will come before the full board at our February meeting. A presentation and generative discussion on a strategic plan thematic area, stewarding resources, was given by Lee Kump, Dean of the College of Earth and Mineral Sciences, and Rick Rausch, Dean of the College of Agricultural Sciences. The committee then went into executive session to discuss privileged matters regarding board governance. Finally, Mr. Chairman, we have one action item to recommend to the board for approval. At the September board meeting, by a vote of 6-1, the committee proposed changes to the charter and bylaws, which is now before the board as an action item. Through this deliberation, the committee does not believe that these documents are meant to require the university to pay legal fees incurred by trustees in actions brought against the university. The purpose of the proposed amendments is to clarify the language to make it clear that the university will not pay such legal fees unless required by law. I would like to make clear that while it has been suggested that this proposal is about trustee access to information, it in fact is not. Pennsylvania law provides for trustees to have their legal fees paid if the university engages in, quote, dilatory, obdurate, or vexatious conduct. For those that may be transcribing these remarks, that's dilatory, D-I-L-A-T-O-R-Y, obdurate, O-B-D-U-R-A-T-E, vexatious, V-E-X-A-T-I-O-U-S. These are the words used in the law, not mine. In the case brought against the university by the plaintiff trustees, the court specifically found that the university did not act in such a manner. The university complied with the court's order in every respect. Trustees received all of the information they asked for. The proposed amendments do not attempt to change state law. It is the committee's belief that the proposed amendments are consistent with best practice. Further, the committee affirms that in good governance, indemnification provisions protect trustees who are sued as a result of their service. Good governance, however, does not incentivize litigation against our university and thus divert resources away from fulfilling our land-grant mission. The committee's proposal clarifies charter and bylaw provisions that protect trustees from having to bear the cost of litigation brought against them as a result of their service to the university. The proposed amendments make it clear that the charter and bylaws do not require the university to pay for actions brought against it. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. David has reported on an action item to come before the full board, the proposed amendments to the charter and bylaws, which I'll ask to be projected now. May I have a motion for approval? Second? All in favor?
Whoa. There's a discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed any discussion.
Chair
Dambley?
Can
I recognize Mr. Tribeck.
Thank you, Chairman. I have raised my concerns about the specific nature of the language during the governance committee meetings, and I remain concerned about the language. I think changing our charter and our bylaws for any reason is something that's done in very limited circumstances. I still have concerns about the changes that are being proposed, and I think that through some further effort there could be some language that everybody gets comfortable with after a more robust discussion or another robust discussion. So I would propose that we consider tabling this motion and this consideration to send this back for some further discussion to include the board as a whole. Again, I think changing our charter and our bylaws is something that should be done only after the most careful consideration.
Like the second trustee Tribeck's motion.
Thank you. We have a first and a second. Any further discussion?
Chair Dambley?
Yes, Juliana?
Trustee Tribeck, I appreciate that, but I feel like we've had some robust discussion. There have been a lot of trustees that have attended the meetings that we've had in the governance committee, which have been in public. I've listened very carefully to all of the arguments that have been made against making this change, and I just have to say I'm in support wholeheartedly of the amendment. My feelings about this come from, custom and in the legal practice, the American rule where parties to litigation bear their own legal expenses. That is normal. This is an unusual circumstance that we find ourselves in. I didn't think until the court interpreted what we have that this is the way it would be interpreted. So to me, what we're trying to do here is what good governance and good public policy dictate, because we don't need to be spending precious resources on litigation. And I do feel like what's being proposed, is not going to, your proposal to have further discussion isn't going to change my opinion about where we should take this.
Thank you, Julianne. Just so we're clear, any discussion right now is only on the motion to table, okay?
Oh, no.
Alice?
Chair Danbley, thank you. Today, the Committee on Governance and Long-Range Planning brings a resolution to remove indemnification, coverage of legal fees for any trustees seeking relief from the court when they are prevented from carrying out their stewardship responsibilities. Trustees have a right and a responsibility to make informed decisions that are in the best interest of the institution they serve. Pennsylvania law governing nonprofits guarantees the right of trustees to bring suit against an institution that withholds information necessary for good decision-making. It is unfair and unreasonable to expect volunteer trustees to pay their own legal costs in such an action. Worse, there would be an inevitable chilling effect on the free flow of information if trustees were forced to shoulder the financial burden of litigation against a university with deep pockets. I believe this is contrary to good governance. By making this change to the board's governing documents, we compromise accountability and transparency in the way that the Pennsylvania State University, the Commonwealth's one and only land-grant institution, conducts its business. Indeed, Auditor General Eugene De Pasquale cautioned against this very action by the board that would limit trustees' access to information, adding, "These bylaw changes would further hamper input from all but the most leading members of the board." Senator John Udechak expressed support for the Auditor General's statement and said, "At a time where the Board of Trustees should be discussing ways to implement the recommendations made by the Auditor General to improve transparency, they are instead considering changes that would further erode transparency." This is a disturbing departure from the university's recent actions to increase integrity throughout the university's operations. Since the Sandusky scandal, the university's leadership has invested heavily in compliance procedures to ensure that even a single whistleblower can bring concerns to light.
Mr. Chair, I have a point of order, please, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is this discussion relative to the motion to table? I still want to hear the comments.
It is.
But I would ask for...
I'm going to conclude by asking that we table it, if I may continue. Thank you, Trustee Hahn. Since the Sandusky scandal, the university's leadership has invested heavily in compliance procedures to ensure that even a single whistleblower can bring concerns to light. I ask, why would the Board of Trustees be the one place within the university where a concerned voice is silenced? The minority voice must not be stifled. Our university should be characterized by a spirit of openness and inclusiveness among students, faculty, administration, and staff, and yes, the Board of Trustees. The interests of the university are safeguarded by ensuring that all trustees, even those who are in the minority, can have their questions fully answered and their concerns effectively addressed. I believe that Penn State deserves governance that reflects our university's deepest values: integrity, the quest for knowledge, and community. I ask my colleagues to table this resolution for now and to work together to find an appropriate solution to our disagreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Anyone else?
Yes, please.
Yes, Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate being recognized, and I support the motion to table. This is taking this board and this university down a dangerous path by by not tabling it without discussion. The Commonwealth Court decision written by Judge Levitt is very express. It wasn't appealed by the university, and right now it's a court decision that says that the Board of Trustees, in losing and violating the law, should indeed be responsible for it. Auditor General Gene De Pasquale, as Alice has said, Trustee Pope has said, has made it very clear, and I know you and I have come to a difference of opinion on what's transparency and what is not transparency. Auditor General De Pasquale has been very critical of this board for not being as transparent as it should be. I appreciate Chairman Hahn's position of not wasting university resources. Mr. Chairman, all I can say is amen to that statement. I don't want to waste the university resources either, because since I've been on this board, I think it's been pretty questionable about how university resources have not been accounted for in a lot of instances where there is no response to the billions of dollars that have been paid out, and I don't think we need to go into that. It's a real, I think, a serious matter. If we're going to extend this, and we're going to go back into court, and we're going to end up with appeals, and this is going to be a decision that is going to reverberate with every meeting we have and be back in court, I think it's a mistake, because yes, that will be resources that will be, I would think, would be included in as the decision of Judge Levitt said. There's no reason why we can't table this. There's no reason to hurry this right now. If we do, I think it's just I spent 32 years in a body that the minority will have its say and the majority will have its way. I understand that language, Mr. Chairman, and I know you do too. But if you use that, if that's the way it's to be, if we're going to be heavy-handed and do this today, I think it's a huge mistake that is going to reverberate into the court system, into the resources of this body, and in the final analysis, the courts have pretty much made that decision. Let's negotiate it. Let's talk about it. Let's see if we can work something out. If there's going to be a heavy-handed majority that's going to insist on doing this today, I think we will have gone down the wrong road, and I think it's a terrible, terrible mistake. Tabling it is the right way to go.
Thank you.
And I strongly support that.
Thank you, Mary Lee.
So last I looked, I think this is the 6-month point. I think this is the last 3 governance long-range planning committee meetings where this has been discussed. So I think it's time to vote. I'm against tabling it. I think we need to move on. We need to vote and move on.
Thank you. Anyone else? Trustee Lebrano.
Mr. Chair, colleagues, I too support the motion to table. I am certain if we table the motion at this time that we will come to a satisfactory resolution in a very short period of time. I am absolutely certain. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to bring it to a vote. The vote now is to table the motion. An aye vote is to table it, and a nay vote is to not, and we'll move on to the resolution. We'll do a roll call vote. Jeannie?
Brown? Aye. Capreto?
He's in the back.
Casey? Cotner? Dambley?
No.
Dandria? Delegati?
Aye.
Detweiler?
No.
Dietrich? Duran? Dunn? Fenza? Hahn? Harpster? Hartzler? Hochel?
No.
Hoffman?
No.
Jubileer?
Aye.
Kleppinger?
No.
Lubert? Lebrano?
Aye.
Mosser?
No.
McCumbee?
Aye.
Oldsey?
Aye.
Paterno?
Aye.
Pope?
Aye.
Potts? Rakowicz?
No.
Rapp?
No.
Redding? Rivera? Schneider?
No.
Schuyler?
No.
Steele? Steele? Tribeck? Weinstein?
Aye.
Okay, Capretta. He just said yes.
Yep.
The motion's defeated.
Okay, the motion is defeated. Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
Mr. Chair, what was the vote, please?
I'm sorry, what was the vote, Jeannie? Do you have it?
15 to 20, 2 abstentions.
20 to 13, 2 abstentions. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. It's been second. We've had any discussion on the motion on the floor? Having heard none? Yes, Mr. Brown.
Before we actually vote on it, I want to clarify something that was mentioned about in the United States. It's typical that people pay their own legal fees. If you look at the time I've been on this board historically, we have, in fact, paid coaches and their lawyers, athletes and their lawyers, faculty and their lawyers, students and their lawyers, alumni and their lawyers, international systems and their lawyers, and even victims that where we weren't found guilty of anything and their lawyers. So if this passes, essentially what we're going to say is the university will pay anyone that sues the university that's victorious and their lawyers except trustees. I think that inherently is wrong.
Okay, any other discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Oh, go ahead.
Mr. Chair,
Rick?
may I speak in support of the motion? As has been noted, common indemnification practice, the practice that is common to the business world and to other nonprofits, is to protect trustees and directors who are sued in their official capacity. Common indemnification practice does not provide trustees the right to recover attorney's fees when they sue the institution they serve. So why is our language so broad as to frame this question of whether there is a right on the part of trustees to recover attorney's fees when they file a lawsuit instead of when they are sued as trustees? Well, 2 points on that. First of all, it was never the intent of the drafters of our charter or bylaws to create a right on the part of trustees to recover their attorney's fees if they sue Penn State. That would be absurd. Well, then why is this language so broad? I think it's because no one at the time of drafting would have foreseen or conceived of the idea of trustees suing the institution that they serve. It's antithetical to why we're sitting around the table. So changing the bylaws to make us consistent with common practice makes good sense, it's good governance, and I would urge my colleagues to vote in favor of the resolution.
Thank you, Chairman, or Chairman, Trustee DeAndrea. Mr. Lebrano.
Thank you, Chairman Dambley. First, I'd like to take exception to Trustee DeAndrea's representation. That's actually incorrect. I've actually studied this quite extensively, as I like to do before I decide to tackle something such as this. It's actually more common with nonprofits for there to be indemnification, period. In the business world, it's a different story. The second is that I don't know that anybody can possibly know the intent of the drafters of our bylaws and charter. I think that's rather presumptuous. With respect to the motion at hand, this issue comes about because trustees were denied access to information. That demand for that information was made under a section of the Pennsylvania Nonprofit Corporation Law, Section 5512. Chairman Hahn is correct when he talks about dilatory, obdurate, and vexatious behavior, and he's correct when he said that the lower court ruled, in fact, that each party should pay legal fees, but in fact, the appellate court, the Commonwealth Court, took no position as to that behavior, but instead decided that under the bylaws, the trustees were entitled to their fees. Here's why I'm concerned about the change. I don't want to waste university resources. We should all be very concerned about the scarce resources. We just received our state appropriation. It was a rather contentious appropriation. And the last thing I want to do is to put the university in a position where they're forced to spend money that's very, very scarce. However, this resolution passes today, and on Monday, one of you wants to see some information, and you're told you can't see it for whatever reason. And then you decide that it's relevant to your duties as a trustee, reasonably related as the actual language, and that you're not going to use the information in a way that's harmful to the institution. So you make a 55, Jeannie. A 50. A 5512. And so your only option at that point, if you're denied access, is litigation. And without this indemnification, I believe, unless you're well-heeled, you're likely not to discharge your duties because you don't take the financial risk. That's why I believe this resolution is a bad resolution from a government. This is not about frivolous litigation. This is about good governance. This is about good governance. This is not about somebody deciding that they were going to sue the university. In the history of this university, we've had one instance where this indemnification was invoked. One. And that one instance was the result of a request to see materials that I think we can all agree are significant and related to this university. And those are the free source materials. And I think we can all agree that Louis Freeh imposed on this university great damage with his report. So at the end of the day, by removing this indemnification, I believe you hurt your ability to provide the governance you're required to provide under the Nonprofit Corporation Act. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
I just
Trustee
want to
Marshall.
say that I believe we as a board need to focus more on affordability and access to a world-class education here at Penn State and not continue letting these litigations rest on the back of students.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion.
I do have a comment. With all due respect, Mike, I don't want to be lectured to, okay? But
Excuse me?
Point of order. I don't think he was lecturing anybody.
oh, that certainly sounded like there was an edge to it, but let's not get into that. What I want to say is about this motion is there's going to come a time. You know, this is one of those things where you may be in the majority now. There's going to come a time when that majority changes. There's going to come a time when that majority changes.
So
and
instead of lecturing, you want to threaten
us?
people?
Yeah.
No. I said there's going to come a time when the majority changes. That's
Jay,
not-
Jay, do you have something germane to this
Yeah,
resolution?
let me
If we
finish.
get to it, I appreciate it.
Okay, Mark.
Thank you, sir.
Let me get to it.
Thank you.
I think the important thing to understand is this is a change in governance regulation. This is not something we should enter into lightly. And I know we've had some discussion, but there are some people here that feel like they have not been part of this discussion. They've been disenfranchised. So there are some emotions involved. That said, let's have the vote.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay. All those in favor, please, let's do a roll call. Roll call vote, please.
Brent,
The motion to table has been defeated. This is the motion to approve the resolution as put forth by the Governor's Long Range Planning Committee. Thank you, Ted.
Brown. No. Capretto. Casey.
Yes.
Cotner. Yes. Dambley.
Yes.
Dandria. Yes. Delegati.
No.
Detweiler.
Yes.
Dietrich.
Yes.
Duran. Dunn. Fenza.
Yes.
Hahn.
Yes.
Harpster.
Yes.
Hartzler.
Yes.
Hochel.
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yes.
Jubileer. Jubileer.
Bob, say no.
Yes, sir.
Kleppinger.
Yes.
Lubert.
Yes.
Lebrano.
No.
Mosser.
Yes.
McCumbee.
No.
Oldsey.
No.
Paterno.
No.
Pope.
No.
Potts.
Yes.
Rakowicz.
Yes.
Rapp.
Yes.
Redding. Rivera. Schneider.
Yes.
Schuyler.
Yes.
Steele.
Yes.
Tribeck.
No.
And Weinstein.
No.
Could you give us the tally when you're done, please?
(21 to 12 with 2 abstentions).
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Committee Chair Bill Oldsey to provide a report of Committee on Academic Affairs and Student Life. Bill? Could you get your microphone, please?
I'm not sure I trust these at this point, but we'll give it a shot. We met yesterday with a quorum present eventually. The operative word there would be eventually. Mr. Chairman, I call to your attention that because of some meeting and timing overlaps yesterday between 2 or 3 committees, we had some quorum issues early, and I know the board is paying special attention to this going forward, but I'd like to think this is a problem that we can fix in the future. Quorum, after all, is important when a committee meets. Academic Affairs has now successfully implemented the new meeting structure as well as our plan for future strategic priorities. And our meeting yesterday was a productive and energizing one. We started with Rob Pangborn. Rob gave a very shortened version of or an overview of the admissions data that we got today. Rob also talked to us about financial literacy programs for Penn State students and some new developments with regard to our student engagement network. Damon Sims delivered reports to the committee on Greek life reform, on Penn State's parent and family weekend program, and on the fall career fair. Provost Jones talked to the committee, gave us an update on a number of critical dean searches that are ongoing currently or will be shortly. Nick also briefly touched on the upcoming enterprise system implementation of WorkLine. The committee recently requested that all of our student government leaders come to academic affairs and student life prepared to speak to their student constituencies' most pressing issues and accomplishments. And there were some nice things said about our student leaders a few minutes ago. I echo the sentiment because this request of our student leaders really represents a change in the philosophy for the committee and for our student leaders. And in the great tradition of Penn State students, our student leaders stood and delivered in a very good way yesterday. And this will be a standing policy for the committee going forward, but in no particular order because of the topics that our student government leaders came prepared to talk about. We addressed the new health insurance plan transition issues that have been experienced by our graduate students and the need for much better, clearer, cleaner communications in the rollout of these kinds of things. Various student fees and how those are going to impact graduate students going forward, which is an issue for our graduate student population right now and something we need to work on to get right. Certainly, we talked briefly about the recent PLRB hearings regarding the graduate student unionization issues. We talked about the critical importance of medical amnesty and the connection between medical amnesty and alcohol abuse among American college students and our changing policies on this at Penn State. This is something the committee will be spending far more time on in the next academic year. We also talked about the importance of the Common Hour, which is a daily time period that's especially important to our Commonwealth campus students, and the issues that have been created for our Commonwealth campus students when classes are scheduled over the Common Hour. We also talked about the crucially important topic of academic advising at Penn State. We talked about what we're doing well in terms of academic advising and areas where we probably need significant improvement. This is another area that the committee will spend more time on in the 2018-2019 academic year. Finally, Maggie Slattery, Assistant Dean for General Education and the Director of the Office for General Education and Faculty Affairs, and the General Education, and Catherine Rios, who's the Associate Director of the School of Humanities at Penn State Harrisburg, delivered to the committee a complete update on the process for revising and implementing our general education core requirements at Penn State, which all Penn State undergraduates, which is very important to all of our undergraduates. The committee also discussed and established our major priorities and our points of focus for 18-19 academic year. We have a lot to accomplish in academic affairs and student life, but with meaningful collaboration and cooperation, I am confident we will continue to make great strides. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions for Bill?
Just a comment, and this is something positive, so don't worry, Mark.
I'm not worried.
I just want to, as it relates to academic affairs, I want to take a moment. The Daily Collegian just this past week, or it may have been a week ago, recognized the 50th anniversary of the Black Caucus student group on our campus. It was founded in 1967 as the Frederick Douglass Association, and it has become a connection to others for students from backgrounds much different than many of ours. It's become a home for many of them. It's been a voice for them, and it's been an agent for positive change at this university. In 1967, their goal was to reach 1,000 black students at University Park. They took on more issues as they went along. In the 1980s, when I was a student here, they challenged Penn State University to divest of investments in South Africa, where the apartheid government was oppressing blacks. They have made great progress in diversity here, and it's a place for students to come together. Dr. Barron, to his credit, with the All-In Diversity Initiative, has created a place at Penn very positive for many, many students from a lot of different backgrounds. On January 21st in 1965, Martin Luther King Jr. at Penn State in Rec Hall said, "There's nothing more tragic than to build a society with a segment of people in that society who feel they have no stake in it, who feel they have nothing to lose." The All-In program has done a great job of eradicating that. However, with all this progress that has been made, in my mind, we have left the black community behind in some ways. From 1990 to 2017, we have seen dramatic jumps in diversity. Our international students have gone from 1% of our population to 11%. Our Hispanic population from 2% to 6%. Our Asian students, Asian Americans have gone from 2% to 6%. And at that time, our black student population has gone from just 3%. That said, as we challenge ourselves to enhance diversity, we want to recognize the good that has been done so far. We want to challenge ourselves to be even better. And as I look at this board, and we have a number of appointments coming up, I look at this board and I see no black faces here. I see no people that may have very, very different backgrounds and experiences that we did in college. So I would challenge us, as Martin Luther King said, to judge people not on the color of their skin, but the cup temperature. As we go into our next round of appointments, I would hope that we would take those things into consideration and to look at this challenge of diversity that has come from this university at a board level as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you need to be a little bit farther away. I think that's what's happening to the speaker. So just so everybody knows, to the microphone. Yes, sir. We'll do that. The Committee on Audit and Risk, while not having a public meeting yesterday, did have a public meeting on October 20th, and I'll ask Committee Vice Chair Ted Brown to provide a report of that meeting. Ted?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you noted, while the committee did not hold a public session yesterday, we did meet via conference call October 20th. While we have no action items to come before the board, at that conference call we had a full slate of discussion and informative issues. We reviewed the roles and responsibilities matrix that assists in ensuring that we are providing information and facilitating discussions in accordance with our committee's charter. And we received our internal audit follow-up report from Dan Heist and discussed some nuances and timelines going forward for outstanding items on that report. Clearly, units are taking their responsibilities very seriously, and we all appreciate what Dan and his staff are doing to foster those collaborations. I might add on a personal note, when I joined this board, and I've been on that committee since the beginning, we had a number of departments with issues, and that number has continually declined, and I credit Dan and his team for making that decline happen, and that's a positive decline because it's a decline in the number of issues. Joe Donchez provided the committee with a thorough review of the audited financial statements. The committee, on your behalf, voted to accept those financial statements for the year ended June 30th of this year. At this point, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report. However, I'd ask Joe Donchez to review the report and comment on the university's audited financial statements. Joe?
Thank you, Ted. Just while Joe's coming up, I need to correct something. It was the CCSG, not the CCGA group that we met with. So thank you, Damon, for correcting me. I appreciate that. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Ted, and thank you, Mark. And good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to comment today on the 2017 audited financial statements. Hopefully, you've had an opportunity to review my October 20th transmittal letter, which provides an overview of the most significant changes between fiscal years 2016 and 17, and I'll focus today on the most noteworthy items. Penn State's overall financial condition remains healthy, with strong growth as depicted in the statements. During 2017, positive operating performance was achieved with an operating margin of 6.3%. Total net assets increased by 8%, paced by robust investment returns, diligent management of university expenses, and Penn State Health's strong operating performance. Overall, the university's financial benchmarks remain healthy. Two of the benchmarks noted here on the left of the slide have improved over the prior year. All three ratios remain strong compared to our peers, as evidenced by Moody's higher education medians published for institutions rated as AA1. The 2016 Moody's medians depicted here in the far right column reflect the most recently available data, and Penn State's metrics fare very well in comparison. Beginning the review of the financial statements now on pages 6 and 7, I'd like to highlight the independent auditor's report, which summarizes the results of the audit. Deloitte's report documents the auditor's clean opinion, meaning that they have opined that the financial statements are presented fairly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles and are free from material misstatement. Pages 8 and 9 of the document present the university's statements of financial position or balance sheets as of June 30th, 2017 and 2016. On page 8, total assets were over $14 billion as of June 30, 2017. Assets grew by $1.2 billion, or nearly 10%. Total cash and cash equivalents grew by $366 million during the year, spurred by a $148 million increase in cash at Penn State Health and $125 million from the issuance of taxable bonds in the latter part of the year. Investments increased by $391 million as a result of strong market returns. Ongoing investment in strategic facilities resulted in a $331 million net increase in plant assets. Ongoing capital projects in that space include the Chemical and Bioengineering Building, Phase 3 of the Intramural Building, and new construction and renovation of student housing and dining facilities across several campuses. Now to the liabilities and net assets side of the balance sheet on page 9. The $614 million, or 13% increase in total liabilities was led by a $298 million net increase in long-term debt, including the aforementioned issuance of the taxable bonds. The accrued post-retirement benefits liability for retiree health care also increased by $170 million, reflecting plan assumption changes and actuarial adjustments. The university continues to manage this liability on a pay-as-you-go basis from investment earnings. Moving now to the bottom of page 9, the total net asset balance of $8.8 billion at year-end represents university resources committed for various purposes. The combined value of the university's endowment and its net investment in plant represents nearly two-thirds of this balance, while the remainder is committed for specific operating and long-term capital purposes going forward. Next, the statements of activities on pages 10 and 11 describes the university's financial operations each fiscal year and provides detail for total revenues and total expenses. Total operating revenues were nearly $6.1 billion in 2017, while operating expenses increased to $5.7 billion. Tuition, auxiliary enterprises, and health system revenues each grew in the 3 to 5% range, and collectively, private grants and contract revenue and investment income increased by $100 million in 2017. Increases in health system, instructional, and institutional support expenses accounted for $184 million of the $234 million increase in operating expenses. The increase in instructional and institutional support expenses were partially driven by the university's voluntary retirement program that took place during fiscal 17. Looking now at all sources of operating revenues in terms of percent to total, this next chart can be found on page 2 of the statements. Health system revenues are the largest single source at nearly $2.1 billion, or 34% of the $6.1 billion operating revenue total. Student tuition and fees were $1.79 billion, or 30% of operating revenue, and the remaining 36% of revenues are depicted here, including the Commonwealth appropriation, which now represents less than 5% of total revenue. Turning now to operating expenses of $5.7 billion on page 3 in the statements, this chart shows the proportional share of each expense category to total spend. Health system expenses of $1.93 billion represent 34%, followed by $1.4 billion of instructional expenses at 25%, while research represents 14% of total spend. Going clockwise, the remaining categories comprise nearly 37% of the total. Completing the review of the statement of activities, back on the bottom of pages 10 and 11, you'll note that non-operating activities resulted in a $253 million increase in net assets, led by long-term investment returns of $306 million and partially offset by a $51 million actuarial valuation change in the post-retirement benefit plan. The final financial statement is the statement of cash flows on page 12, which details the net increase in cash and cash equivalents of $366 million, which I described earlier during the balance sheet review. The footnotes are found on pages 13 through 40 and disclose the basis and underlying estimates for calculating the most significant accounts and balances. Footnotes 1 and 2, beginning on page 13, disclose the basis of presentation and the summary of significant accounting policies for the consolidated entity. Footnotes 3 through 6 on pages 22 through 30 provide background and valuation methodologies for investments, endowments, and receivables. Footnotes 7 through 10 on pages 31 through 37 include details on the university's debt and benefit obligations. Footnote 11 on pages 37 and 38 includes information specific to Penn State Health, and the footnotes conclude on pages 38, 39, and 40 with disclosures related to contingencies, commitments, and subsequent events. I'll transition now to the annual report on the university's system of internal controls as depicted here. Deloitte considers and evaluates internal controls relevant to the fair presentation of the statements and provides related communication of their assessment to the Audit and Risk Committee. That communication was reviewed with the committee on October 20th and indicated that no material control weaknesses or material balance misstatements were identified. Management continues to design, develop, and modify internal controls that integrate processes, systems, and people in a way that protects university assets. To wrap up and summarize some key points today, the financial statements have been audited. A clean opinion has been issued by Deloitte. The underlying financial condition of the university, as presented in the financial statements, remains strong. We continue to manage our balance sheet, budgets, and expenses prudently. We have a good system of internal controls in place that address the magnitude and diversity of our institution and its 24 campuses. Mr. Brown, that completes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Anthony? Just stand back a little bit from the mic.
Can you hear me if I talk this far back?
That's about right.
Okay. Thanks, Joe. Before I begin, just by way of transparency, my education, training, background, and examination, I'm a certified public accountant, though my license has been active for many, many years. But I, once upon a time, played around with these things. So I appreciate the fact that you sent this to me for review. I have a couple of basic questions. The first question I have for you is, when the audit was conducted, was there a materiality that was considered for purposes of the representations made in the financial statements?
There is. The firms typically don't share that materiality with the client anymore, but they use their professional judgment and their professional standards to determine that materiality.
And what I'm really curious about is the footnotes. Who prepared the footnotes?
Management's responsible for the entire financial statement, including the footnotes.
So that hasn't changed since the days I practiced. So I went back 2012 to today, and I looked at footnote number 12, and I'm struck because under litigation and contingencies, our representations in 2000 for the year ended June 30th, 2016, our representation in the footnote is as of June 30th, 2016, the university has paid or accrued $93 million for 33 claims and $200,000.2 million and $33.2 million included in institutional support within the consolidated statements of activities for the years ended June 30th, 2016 and 2015 respectively. But this year, and by the way, that's the way we reported it for the prior, I believe, 4 years. Why did we change the format for presentation this year?
And I'm going to turn to Steve Dunham and Frank Guadagnino in a moment because
before you do, as a reader of financial statements, my understanding was that footnotes are always supposed to make it easier for the readers of financial statements. So am I to read this in a way that I add the number from this year to the total from last year to determine what the cumulative number is?
you could take that approach, yes.
Okay, so I'll let Steve explain why we changed the approach to a presentation in the footnotes.
I'll just say first, from an accounting perspective, the activity is significantly less than it was in those early years, and I think that was one of the reasons. And from there, I'll turn it to Steve and Frank.
And again, you know, from my experience, though the activity might have been quote unquote less, the purpose is still to make a transparent representation to the readers of the financial statements and not necessarily make it difficult for them to figure some of this stuff out. And we are still a public institution. We just took in $3 million of taxpayer monies. So it would seem to me we want to be consistent from year to year, which was also my understanding from my days of practicing in public accounting.
So in our meeting with the auditors in discussing that footnote, they indicated that they typically required sort of one-year look back, so they would include last year's number and this year's number, and I think that was included in the footnote. Then there was reference to the number you referred to, which goes back to 2013, and I think in the conversation with them, they said that's not necessary for any purpose. It's not material to this year's financial statement because it deals with transactions in 2013, and so they suggested it could be deleted. There were other numbers deleted. Last year there was, an insurance number, and they thought that wasn't necessary this year for purposes of materiality and disclosure, so it was collectively decided under their guidance to follow their standard, which was a 2-year look back instead of a 4 or 5-year look back.
So you're saying that they recommended this structure? Because I'm trying to follow what you just said, Steve. Historically, we've given a 2-year period, so why wouldn't we have again shown as of June 30th, 2017 and June 30th, 2016, the cumulative totals instead of just the amounts of expenditure?
I think it shows, X was paid in 2016 and Y was paid in 2017, and they said that's the way to do it.
But it seems strange to me for 4 prior years that wasn't the way to do it, but yet this year they were advising us that was the way to do it?
One of the trustees raised this same question in the audit committee with the, I'm sure you probably knew that, with the accountants there, and they said they were comfortable with this, and this 2-year look back was the right standard, and they thought it was the right way to go.
I will say,
if I may interrupt.
Let me finish, Ted.
Well, I
have the floor, Ted, so I want to finish.
Okay.
Thank you.
But is that Ted? Did I misquote that discussion? That's what they said. And Ted.
Let me clarify, and I'm very uncomfortable.
So you're saying Ted was the one who they should do this?
No, Ted was in the room when he asked essentially the same question, and the auditors said they were comfortable with the 2-year provision that was in the footnote, and they thought it was appropriate.
And I'm sure without having a background in this, he might say that, because it sounds like a plausible explanation, but having read so many financials over the years, in any event.
No, I'm not saying Ted said that. I'm saying the auditors said that. The auditors, Anthony.
Thank you.
I'm very uncomfortable talking about stuff that was done in executive session, but since you brought it up, Steve, I was the one that asked the question, and unlike Anthony, I do not have accounting background. In fact, in almost every audit and risk committee meeting, I say I'm here because of the R, not the A, clarifying my area of expertise. But I have to say that discussion did happen, but it was led by you, Steve, not by the auditors. And I don't know that that's important, but to give the board the impression the auditor said this is the way to do it is not accurate. When you presented it, then they agreed, yes, that's okay. Now, I don't know if that matters. I'm just uncomfortable when somebody represents what I did or didn't say or agree to.
I didn't say anything whatsoever about what you agreed to.
No, very simply, you led the answer, not the auditors.
I'm not sure this is productive. I'm happy to answer.
Well, I didn't bring up the committee.
Can we move on? You done, Anthony? You good? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Joe, and appreciate all your hard work, and you guys are great. Turning to the Committee on Compensation, I'll ask Keith Mosser, Chair of the Committee, for a report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The committee met yesterday in public and executive sessions. During these meetings, we reviewed detailed compensation spreadsheets that included market information for those executives whose compensation falls within our purview of approval. Based on that review, as well as discussions with President Barron about his recommendations, the committee approved salary increases for Tier 2 and Tier 2A executives as proposed. As you will recall, per the President's request, action on these increases was deferred in September due to the lack of an approved Commonwealth of Pennsylvania budget. Additionally, in an executive session on September 1st, 2017, September 14th, 2017, and again yesterday, we also reviewed a presidential pay competitive analysis and a 360 presidential evaluation report for President Barron. Both documents were compiled by our external compensation consulting firm. The Presidential Evaluation Report was also provided to the full board for review and input and discussed during the September 15th executive session. Based on this information, the committee is recommending for approval by the full board a base salary of $834,364, which is a 2% merit increase for President Barron, to be effective July 1, 2017. As you will recall, per the President's request, action on this increase was also deferred in September due to the lack of an approved Commonwealth of Pennsylvania budget. All proposed increases for Tier 2 and Tier 2A executives were reported this morning to the full board and have been publicly released by the university. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Chairman Mosser. Displayed now is the resolution on presidential compensation. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second? Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to vote against this resolution, not because I don't think there's a merit deserved. I'm not going to weigh in on that, but because, you know, we're talking about affordability. We're talking about very difficult appropriations period in Harrisburg and difficulties going forward with the state budget. I think that we would do well if we decided not to approve this and maybe come up with a different approach. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Mark, I just want to explain. I'm going to abstain simply because this involves a review when I was not a trustee. So just that, and then that's no disrespect whatsoever to Dr. Barron, but this does pertain to the review that happened last year, correct? The review that we was.
This is for this year's salary.
Right, but I mean it was last year's review, and I was not part of that. So I'm not abstaining in any way as a protest vote or anything. I just felt like because I was not part of that review.
His review was read out in July when you were a board member. But
no, I know, but
fine.
I did not participate in that review. It's not. I'm not trying to argue, Mark. I'm just going to let you know why I'm doing it.
That's fine.
That's
okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Trustee Lebrano, no, and Trustee Paterno abstain. And Brown, no. Okay. The motion carries. A press statement will be issued later this afternoon with respect to this item. Rob Fenza will report in the Committee on Finance, Business, and Capital Planning, and we're running a little tight on time, Rob, so whatever you can do. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A quorum for the Finance, Business, and Capital Planning Committee met yesterday. The committee approved the September 14, 2017 minutes. There are a number of action items requiring a board vote today. I'll report the committee's recommendations for each action item. Multiple opportunities for briefings were provided to trustees through various opportunities to ensure each trustee had a comfortable level of information. We hosted 2 webinars. We provided detailed information on the board portal, and we supplemented this with the university administration making itself available to answer questions. As my colleagues are aware, these opportunities are for your benefit, and I appreciate people taking advantage of those opportunities to seek additional information before the meeting. Moving now to the committee's action items. Item 1 is the proposed naming of a new building at Penn State York, the Graham Center for Innovation and Collaboration. The committee reviewed and approved item 1 unanimously. Item 2 has been postponed. I'll now ask President Barron to present item 3, consideration of request for the 2018-2019 appropriation for operations.
Today I will present Penn State's proposed state appropriation request for the fiscal year that begins on July 1st, 2018. This includes the details of the proposed request for the 2018-19 appropriation for operations and the budget plan that it would support. Penn State's appropriation request is traditionally due to the Pennsylvania Department of Education in late September. Due to the ongoing stalemate delaying approval of the 2017-18 state budget, we postponed submission of our 2018-19 request until November in the hopes that we would see resolution of our 2017-18 funding. On October 25th, the General Assembly passed Penn State's 2017-18 appropriation bill
so we are now able to plan for next year. The 2018-19 request recognizes the fiscal realities at the state level, but incorporates the amount that would be necessary to hold base tuition flat for Pennsylvania resident undergraduates. The state appropriation is a very critical factor that influences Penn State's resident tuition rates. You can see here that even prior to the major reduction in 2011-12, we did not see significant increases in state support, and in the years with red segments at the top of the bars saw rescissions of the originally appropriated amounts partway through the fiscal year when state revenues fell below projections. The small increases in the total for the 3 years from 2012-13 through 2014-15 and again in 2016-17 were in the line items other than general support, that is Penn College, Ag Research and Extension, and medical assistance for the Milton Hershey Medical Center. Our proposed request for state appropriation for operations for 2018-19 includes a 6% increase in general support line. An increase of $13.8 million would make it possible to hold tuition flat for Pennsylvania residents across all Penn State campuses for expense increases unrelated to the capital plan that was approved by the board in the September meeting. The proposal also includes the same percentage increase for the Agricultural College Land Script Fund, the Pennsylvania College of Technology, and for medical assistance funding for the Hershey Medical Center. This table summarized what I described in the previous slide. With the requested amount for general support, that line would increase to $244.3 million, still well below the 2010-11 amount. The total support requested through the Department of Education includes $2 million for Penn College for a total of $24.1 million. The total request through the Department of Agriculture for the script funds totals $55.5 million. Including an increase for the funding allocated through the Department of Human Services for Hershey Medical Center, the total amount in our proposed appropriation request is $338 million. If the Commonwealth provides the requested appropriation, the budget plan would include only an increase in base tuition for Pennsylvania resident students sufficient to cover the needs for our capital plan. The budget plan would also support critical priorities and mandated cost increases, including a modest pool for faculty and staff salary adjustments, support for the capital plan and facility maintenance and operations, as well as fundings for initiatives related to the strategic plan, innovation, and student aid. The estimated expense increases for Penn State's educational and general budget are summarized on this slide. The plan would include up to a 2.5% pool for salary adjustments aimed at providing competitive salaries to recruit and retain talented faculty and staff. Healthcare costs are estimated to increase by $8.6 million. The increase in employer retirement contributions is estimated to be $4.1 million. The final 2018-19 CSRS employer contribution rate will not be provided to us until late April. Funding would also be included for the capital plan needs, including the maintenance and operation of new or newly renovated facilities, an early estimate of inflationary utility increases, examples of which include water and energy, and increases to funds designated for deferred maintenance. Also included is funding for first year of the new capital plan as approved in September. $9 million would be budgeted to fund innovation and initiatives to implement the strategic plan. $1.4 million for property and liability insurances, along with a $2 million increase for institutional need-based student aid, and $3 million to allow for as yet unanticipated needs. The sources that would support the expense increases are summarized here and include the proposed increase of $13.8 million in Penn State's general support appropriation. We have set an aggressive target for budget reductions or reallocations of $34.4 million. Note that if we are able to reach this target, the net increase in the E&G budget would be $50.2 million rather than the gross amount of $84.6 million. Estimates of incremental revenue include $3.5 million from additional overhead recovery on external grants, additional tuition revenue for summer 2018 generated by 2017-18 tuition increases, another $2 million from continuation of the plan to reduce the E&G appropriation transfer to the College of Medicine, and an additional $3 million from enrollment growth and increased fees charged to entering international students. Initial planning includes the aforementioned limited increases in base resident tuition of 1.75% and an aggregate tuition increase for non-residents of 2.27%. The appropriation request is the initial step in the budget process. We anticipate ongoing discussions with elected officials in the governor's office about the value of the Commonwealth investment in Penn State. There is enormous potential for additional investments that would drive economic development and enhance access and affordability for Pennsylvania residents. As this fiscal year progresses, budget estimates for the next year will be updated and the committee will be apprised of the status of the request at future meetings. Thank you. That concludes the presentation on the request for the 2018-19 appropriation for operations.
Thank you. Mr. President, any questions for the President? Okay. Rob?
The committee reviewed and approved item 3 unanimously. Item 4, proposed appointment of the design-build team for West Campus Steam Plant, the combined heat and power system at University Park. And item number 5, proposed final plan approval for authorization to expend funds for the North Campus chilled water plant system expansion at University Park. The committee reviewed and approved items 4 and 5 unanimously. I'll now ask Eric Strucco, Associate Vice President for Finance and Business and the Controller for Penn State College of Medicine, to present item 6, which is the proposed purchase of the leasehold improvements on the campus of the Penn State Health Milton S. Hershey Medical Center, known as 30 Hope Drive in Derry Township.
Thank
Eric?
you, Rob. This proposal before the board is rather timely, given President Barron's presentation on the opportunities facing the university with regard to health and education and research. So this is the campus of the Hershey Medical Center and the College of Medicine. This is your 550 acres. The building highlighted in yellow here on the east side of the campus is 30 Hope Drive. That is the address. It is a large facility of about 167,000 square feet, currently owned by a private developer named Lilliebridge. The Milton Hershey Medical Center leases the building from Lilliebridge, and Lilliebridge leases the land upon which this building sits from Penn State University. Here's a close-up version of the east side of the campus, and you can see that we have other clinical facilities here, most notably the Hershey Outpatient Surgery Center, as well as other ambulatory care sites across the road from 30 Hope Drive. Here are a lot of details for this proposal. I'll briefly go through them, but I hope you have a chance to look at this. This is a rather complex transaction. It involves 2 leases, 2 buildings. One building is 30 Hope Drive. Another building is one that is still in the planning phases. But the arrangement here is that Penn State University entered into this lease with Lilliebridge for the land, but also built into that lease a purchase option 10 years into the lease term, and this is the time we're in now. The lease option to purchase the building is for $57.4 million, and Penn State's College of Medicine has this cash on hand today. So there won't be any need for financing or looking for other sources of funds. The Milton Hershey Medical Center leases this building from Lilliebridge and outlays over $5 million a year currently for the facility. The plan is to continue that lease between the hospital, but instead of paying Lilliebridge this $5 million a year, the hospital will pay the College of Medicine and the university this $5 million. The college then plans to turn this new cash flow into partially debt financing the construction of a new research and education facility on the Hershey campus. This gives you a sense of the scale of this new research education facility, how it sits on the end of the crescent, which is the academic end of the academic health system. It is for biomedical and health research. It's over 330,000 square feet. It will add over 60 new labs to the campus. It will also add a wing for teaching and education. So this facility will advance both the biomedical and health research and education missions that occurred on the Hershey campus. You can see how we preliminarily plan to finance this building, which will cost $317.3 million. That's our preliminary estimates. The last bullet is the one that's pertinent to this presentation. The $5 million new cash flows from the hospital to the college will partially offset the debt portion for this facility. And the history behind this building, I'll go over this briefly. The building was constructed a decade ago, back when cash was at a premium on our Hershey campus. The university was funneling a lot of resources just to keep the hospital operating. Circumstances have changed dramatically since then. The hospital is profitable, and we do have that profitability has enabled us to accumulate the cash to actually exercise this purchase option. If we do not act at this time, the next window of opportunity to exercise the purchase option is 5 years from now. And that will increase the cost and have an opportunity cost of not getting the rent payments. So there are advantages to university ownership. I went over those. Here are some of the particulars of the deals. You can see the purchase price there. And finally, we did an analysis of alternative uses of the $57 million. If we invested it in the university's long-term pool, we would generate a return of about $3 million. But through compounding, it will take a decade to equal the rent cash flows that would come in the $5 million.
Eric, thank you. I appreciate the amount of work that went into this analysis and the fact that I'm sorry about that. Appreciate the work that went into this. Thank you very much for a thorough write-up and submission to the committee. The committee reviewed and approved item 6 unanimously. Item number 7 is the proposed new university financial system software acquisition. The committee reviewed and approved item number 7 unanimously. Mr. Chairman, this completes the report from the Committee for Finance, Business, and Capital Planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, before you go to a vote, I just want to commend both Chair Fenza and Vice Chair Schneider for the webinars that were run, because it allowed me certainly to be prepared for this meeting. So thank you both for the time, because I know how much time is involved.
Thank you. Okay, we'll run through each of these independently, correct? Jeannie, okay, I'll ask that the agenda item 1, the proposed naming of a new building at Penn State, York, be projected. May I have a motion for approval? Second? Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On the screen now is FBCP item 3, consideration of request for 2018-2019 appropriations for operations. May I have a motion for approval? Second? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Displayed now is FBCP agenda item 4, proposed design build team for West Campus Steam Plant combined heat and power system. We missed Ford, don't we? This was one of his babies. May I have a motion for approval? Second? Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. FBCP item 5 is now being projected, which is the proposed final plan and expending of funds for the North Campus chilled water plant system expansion. May I have a motion for approval? Second? Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I'll ask that the FBCP agenda item 6 be projected, which is the purchase of leasehold improvements at 30 Hope Drive as noted in the agenda. May I have a motion for approval? Second? Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. FBCP agenda item 7 is now projecting, which is the proposed new university financial system software. May I have a motion for approval? Second? Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Rob, and sorry if we rushed you a little bit. Okay, next we'll have, there was no public meeting of the Legal and Compliance Committee as they met in executive session yesterday afternoon and this morning for a privileged legal briefing which was open to all trustees. Abe Harpster will now report on the Outreach Development and Community Relations Committee. Chairman Harpster.
I have an abbreviated report. The committee met yesterday. We had Colonel Eugene McFeely join our meeting to provide overview of veteran affairs and services at Penn State. As a reminder, the military appreciation tailgate tomorrow between 9 and 11. Hopefully you can all go and see what an amazing event it is. We had Lawrence Lockman provide an annual overview of crisis communication, readiness, and protocols for his office. David Kleppinger provided an update on progress on developing the committee operating guidelines. And then we had Zach Moore provide us with a brief state budget update, including the General Assembly's vote in support of our appropriation and the governor's quickly signing of the bill into law. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. The Board of Trustees needs to authorize the president of the university or designee to confer degrees. Will the board therefore authorize the president or designee to confer degrees at the end of the 2017 spring semester, summer session, and fall semester upon those students who have completed at those times the necessary requirements? May I have a motion? Second? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Proposed date of election of trustees by delegates from agricultural societies by the alumni for business and industry and at large. Turning to item 7, will the Board of Trustees approve May 3rd, 2018 as the date for the delegate election of agricultural trustees and for counting the ballots in the alumni election, and approve May 4th, 2018 as the date for the election of business and industry and at large trustees? May I have a motion? Second? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Selection of recipients of the 2018 Distinguished Alumni Award. The Distinguished Alumni Award Screening Committee met this week and is asking for the board to consider its recommendations for 2018 recipients. I will ask the Board of Trustees to select by written ballot persons to receive the Distinguished Alumni Award in June of this year. I'll ask Marcus Whitehurst and Michael Cubitt to serve as tellers to count the ballots. At this time, I'll ask the board staff to distribute the ballots, collect, and provide them to our tellers. So these are the 8 that were recommended by that committee. So if you agree with it, check the names next to them. Yes, sir. Oh, yes, and just so everybody's aware, this is very, very confidential. That's why it's a paper ballot. So these folks, once we determine if they've been elected, then President Barron and myself will make phone calls, and then after that, I guess those folks will know. So just please keep it confidential for the next week or so. Thank you. There you go, wine man. Marcus and Michael, now that you have the ballots, I'm ready. Again, in case you all were focused on that, again, please keep this confidential for the next week or so. Okay, so the board office will notify everyone once the recipients have been notified, so you don't have to wait in suspense. Okay, Marcus and Michael, if they don't, they will soon have the ballots. I'll ask that following the adjournment of our meeting today, if you could please count the ballots and provide the results to Tom Poole, Vice President for Administration and Secretary of the Board. This way, Tom can alert President Barron and myself of the intended recipients, the following notification to and acceptance by each honoree. Those names will then be publicly released. Are there any other matters to come before the board? Hearing none, we're adjourned. Thank you.